my Bible up here. For those who want to follow along, I'll be mostly out of Matthew chapter 22. So I'm supposed to give an introduction first, so that's what I'll do right now. Okay, so what happened to get me up here in the first place was this. Back in January, Pastor Janet got up and she gave a brief message before the main message, and that message had 2 main points. Point one being God's will for Elim is healing. Point 2 being healing is a dinner bell. I heard that, and I knew God was speaking. I just couldn't make out what he was saying. It was like God saying something, but I couldn't grasp it, and it bothered me. So I went home, and I got into prayer, and I got reading my Bible, trying to figure out, what is God saying? God's will for Elim is healing, and God's will, and healing the dinner bell. It just kept going in my mind, over my mind. As I prayed about it, as I sought God about it, I got some revelation. Talked to Pastor Joel, and after talking, he decided to come up here and share some of that with you. So that's what's going to go on here. So when Pastor Janet was talking about that message, I was sitting over there, of course, where I always sit. I looked at that window, and all I could see was crowds of people standing out there. The dinner bell, crowds of people. They couldn't get in because there's no room left in here. And what came to my spirit was this: are you ready? And it was to Elim: are we ready? And I'm going, God, am I ready? I don't know if I'm ready, Lord. How do I know if I'm ready? I don't get it. How do I know if I'm ready? Because I can guess I'm ready. I pray, I read, I worship you. Is that ready? Does this count? I didn't like guessing. Guessing bothers me because if you guess right, or you guess wrong. If you guess wrong and your life's screwed because you're going on the wrong path. I'm not okay with guessing. Guessing bothers me. So I said, God, you got to show me, how do I know if I'm ready? Because there's got to be some type of standard, some type of level in the scriptures that tells a person when they're ready. So he led me to this one here. Everybody knows the Great Commission. I'll read it here. And he said to them, this is Jesus, of course, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. He who believes and is baptized will be saved, but he who does not believe will be condemned. And these signs will follow those who believe. Get this. And these signs will follow those who believe. In my name they will cast out demons. They will speak with new tongues. They will take up serpents. If they drink anything deadly, it will by no means hurt them. They'll lay hands on the sick, and they will recover. The part that got me was this. I'm thinking healing because Pastor Janet's message was healing. Now I will pause here and say this. At that time I had ears to hear, so I heard God was saying something. I couldn't make out what he was saying. But looking back at it, I seen Pastor John and Pastor Joel say the same thing, and they said the same thing afterwards. They've all been saying it. Just that day I heard it. So healing was on my mind. So when I read, they lay hands on the sick and they'll recover, it was going through my mind. Is this what you're talking about, God? Is this what I'm supposed to do? Am I supposed to lay my hands on the sick and then recover? I'm like, oh, okay. But it wasn't right. I knew in my spirit. So I kept going back to God, and this is what he hit me with, that these signs will follow those who believe. It's that those who believe. These signs will follow those who believe. That's when it hit me. If these signs are not following me, then I'm not believing. And that's the standard of a believer. And I'm asking God, what's the standard of knowing I'm ready? Here's the standard. I pray, and I lay my hands on the sick, and they recover. If it's just lay my hands on the sick and pray, I was good there. I was there. But he said they shall recover. I had no faith for that, I realized. My faith was way down here. I realized here's standard, and here I am. And I'm like, God, this is not right. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. So how do I step up and get to where I'm supposed to be? Because, God, I want to do what you call me to do. I don't want to, when you move, put it this way here, when God moves, I want to be in the center. I don't want to be in the sidelines watching. I want to be in the middle. I want to be a part of it. I want to see limbs grow out. I don't want to sit in the pew and watch a limb grow and go, well, that's cool. I want to be up there going, I'm praying too now. I'm in. I want in. So I don't, well, I'm glad you guys agree with me. That's good. So this realizing that I wasn't at standard level really bothered me. So I was going to God, you have to show me, how do I become up the standard? How do I go from where I am to where I need to be? Because I don't want to stay where I am because I don't like where I am. I want to be where I'm supposed to be. So praying that, and that was my next question, what do I do? And he led me to this one here. Matthew chapter 22, verse 14. For many are called, but few are chosen. Many being a large number, few being a small number. And I got that the call was a big number and the chosen was a small number. I was going through my mind, how does all that work? And it hit me, Pastor Janet's message. The will of God is healing for Elim, tongue-tied there, sorry. Oh my God, how does it all apply? I don't get it. Then what came to me was this. He's calling us into his will. It's a call to come into his will. His will for us is healing, so it's a call. And he's telling me a call here, and I'm realizing a large number is called, but very few are answering. And I want to know, how do I step into the ones that answer? And he said, just read the whole thing and you'll start to see it. So I started doing that. It's a parable. I'm going to read it first, and we're going to start breaking it down some. Chapter 22. And Jesus answered and spoke to them again by parables and said, the kingdom of heaven is like a certain king who arranged a marriage for his son. And he sent out his servants and called those who were invited to come to the wedding, and they were not willing to come. Again he sent out other servants and said, tell those who were invited, see, I have prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fatted cattle are killed, and all things are ready, come to the wedding. But they made light of it, went their ways, one to his own farm, another to his business. And the rest of these servants treated them spitefully and killed them. But when the king heard about it, he was furious, and he sent out his armies, destroyed those murderers, and burnt up their cities. Burnt up their city. Then he said to his servants, the wedding is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. Therefore, go into all the highways, and as many as you find, invite to the wedding. So those servants went down to the highways, and gathered together all whom they found, both the bad and the good. And the wedding hall was filled with guests. Then the king came in to see this guest, and he saw a man standing there who did not have on a wedding garment. So he said to him, friend, how did you come in here without a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then the king said to the servants, bind him hand and foot, take him away, and cast him into utter darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, for many are called, but few are chosen. I was praying over this, trying to understand it. And the first thing I realized was this. There was two groups. Group one. The group one was the ones that were called first, but they were classified as unworthy in verse 8. Then he said to his servants, the wedding is ready, but those who were invited were not worthy. They were classified as unworthy. Group two was classified as worthy because they were the ones that filled the wedding hall up. And I realized I want to know what group one did, so I don't do the same thing they did. And I want to know what group two did so I can copy what they did because they got in. So I started going to God, okay, what is going on here? And just kept going back and read it again. You'll see it. After reading it a few more times, I started to see some things. So here's what we get to see now. First things first, the parable of the kingdom of heaven. And it's a parable of the marriage supper of the Lamb. That's the context of the story. But in this story, in this context of the story, is the principles of the call. And that's what I want to look at, the principles of the call. So we see here, back up here, my apologies. Jesus is speaking to a group of people, and they're going to hear about a natural king. In their mind, they hear a natural king. So a king who's going to grow old and die, and a son whose prince will become king. That's what they're going to hear in their minds. Now we know because the context is kings referring to God the Father, and Jesus is the Son of God, Jesus. That the Son is Jesus. So by that knowledge, we know that this king in the story, he loves his son. So since he loves his son, everything he does for his son will be out of love. So he sends out his servants to arrange this, get everything ready for him. And he sent out his servants to call those who were invited. The word call and the word invite, literally the exact same word in the Greek. The only difference here is one word's present tense and one word's past tense. Why is that? The only way I can describe it to you is this way here. It's like me saying to you, hey guys, I'm having a get together at my place this weekend at 7 o'clock. You're all invited. But I don't stop there. I send a chauffeur to come pick you up. That's what this king's doing. He's sending his servants to come pick these his invited guests up. This king is showing honor to these people. Why is he showing honor to them? Because by honoring these people, he's actually honoring his son. So I want you to see that there's honor in a call. When God places a call out, there's honor in it. I'm going to break this down a little bit more and a little bit faster because I got to limit time here. So there's this part here. They were called. I'll get my head straight here. Apologies. Okay, so here it is. I realize there's 5 steps that happen. Step 1, God reveals his will. The king here revealed his will to the people. He's going to have a marriage supper for his son. The will was revealed. Then he sent his servants to personally bring the people in. Their response to this response, now they've already heard the will, but they so they have a choice: prepare to get ready for it, because if it's an X date, they all know at X date they need to be ready. So they can either get ready or not get ready. It's their choice. So when the time came when the servants come to pick them up, their response was this: they were not willing. So that group was not willing. That's the first group that was unworthy. They were not willing. And I realized that to be unwilling leads one down a path of becoming unworthy. And I realized that a hard heart is necessary to be unwilling, because if your heart is soft towards God, you are automatically going to be going, I want in. So this heart issue now becomes a factor. And that the opposite is true as well. If an unwilling heart leads on the path of being unworthy, then a willing heart leads on the path of being chosen. And I'm wanting to see how to get chosen. Then we see here in verse 4. Verse 4 is all about time. Because the first thing he says, when he hears that they're not willing to come, he says again. For again to happen, that means the servants had to go back to him and tell him, Your Majesty, the ones you invited are not willing to come. And then he says, he sent out other servants. For that to happen, those servants had to come back. At this time, coming back was scheduled, planned time. It should have been time that was used for them to come the first time. When they go and talk to the king and then go back, that's all time that was not planned. All this time is being lost and wasted right now. So I'm realizing calls have timelines attached to them. I don't know if they all do, but clearly some do. And he also said, Tell those who were invited, see, I prepared my dinner. My oxen and my fatted cattle are ready. All things are ready. Come to the wedding. He said, I prepared. It's been prepared. Those who were called don't need to prepare anything. It's already been prepared for them. And all things are ready. Come to the wedding. Okay, I'm going to keep going before I break it down some more. Their response to this was they made light of it. And when they went their ways, one to his own farm, another to his own business. And the rest seized them and treated them spitefully and killed them. So here's what I'm seeing what happens. When God is calling a group to something, he first shares with them his will for that call. At this point in time, there was no need to make a response. We just hear the call. We now know what God's will is. So we can now choose to either prepare ourselves for his will, so when the call comes, we can answer, or we can just continue doing our own things. So in that way, when the call comes, we won't be prepared, and we're more likely to choose to harden our hearts, and thus be unwilling. If we choose to go down the path of unwillingness, the next thing is we're going to hear that call again, because God is very merciful. He will see to it that we have multiple choices. So the word comes again to us, and we get to hear it a second time. Now we can either choose to become willing and soften our hearts and go in that way, or we can choose to harden our hearts once more to do that, because choosing to make our hearts harder, because to stay hard, we have to make it harder. To do that, we have to make that word light. They made light of it. That's what I realized, that when that weight of that call comes the second time, it's heavy on us, because we are become hard and we don't want to hear it, because it means the flesh has to die, so we don't want to take that up. So we make light of it to make it not seem important, thus it doesn't bother us. If we continue down this path, the next time the call comes, because again, he is very merciful, we become spiteful to that call, to that word. Spiteful means you're thinking instantly of it. You don't think well of it. You think poorly concerning this subject, because it's hard on your flesh and you don't want to answer that call. The last one, the most dangerous one of them all, is you kill. Now, I don't see someone sending up a gun and shooting somebody, but people do kill with their words. You speak poorly of this call, of this word, and that kills that word. And that's when the punishment comes in. That's when God's, simply put, you reap what you sow. So if you sow bad seeds, you reap a bad harvest. So the judgment will show up. This is the path that leads to the unworthiness, the path that I want to know about so I don't make that same mistake. These are the ones that were invited but were classified as unworthy. I want to stop here. I'm going to give a bit of my testimony right now. Because I found myself on number 3, the insolent stage. And God had to correct me. I realized this when I was praying all through this, going through this, and I realized how dangerous a hard heart was. So, give a background information about myself. Before I got saved, there was this poem that I really, really had an issue with. It was, no man should be an island unto himself. I didn't like that because that meant I had to have somebody in my life. I liked being alone. I enjoyed being alone. I got picked on a lot as a kid, so I just developed a attitude as being by myself was safe and secure, and I just liked it, and I preferred that way of living. So I heard this poem, and I despised it. I just could not stand it. I thought very poorly of it. I ended up getting saved, and I read the Bible, and I read in Genesis where it says that God says it's not good that man should be alone, and his answer to that is, yeah, he has a wife. Well, I could live with that part, but the fact is I had to bring someone to my life. I didn't like that. That loneliness is gone. That's someone brought in, and that bothered me because my security, my safety that I had developed all those years was being tampered with, and that was not okay with me. So I had just ignored it altogether. Then I read the Proverbs 31 promise of the wife whose husband is safe and trusting his heart with her. Well, I liked that idea, and I thought that was awesome. I danced around and thrilled about it. Then I realized people are people, and God's awesome, but people are people, and so I'm like, back off of that. I don't want that. No, I don't want that. So I'm going like that, and I entered down at this age that I became insolent towards the thought of marriage. I thought very poorly of it, and I won't go over what my thoughts were because they were just wrong. God got on my case, and he corrected me very clearly that the way I thought about marriage was so wrong. Do stop it because I designed it, I back it up, I support it, it's mine. So I'm like, okay, God, I get it, I back off. So I was stuck at the light stage where I took it lightly. I want nothing to do with it, and I just thought lightly of it. And that one got erased. How did that one get erased again now? That's been a while now. Actually, I don't recall that one got erased. But it got erased. Somehow God came in and just erased it. Oh, I know. Now I remember now. Yes. How did I forget that one? It was back around March this year. I was studying how to fulfill what God's called me to do without being married. So I was going through Scripture trying to find a promise of how to pull that off. There's got to be a promise in there. I finally found one. The promise of a eunuch, where you don't get anything cut off. You just live like a eunuch and serve God. Like, I thought this was great. I was so awesome. So I grabbed a pen, I grabbed a paper, and I knew everything to do to get this in my life. So I grabbed the pen, reaching for the paper, and as soon as I almost touched the paper, I never actually touched it, heard God say this, Benjamin, if you continue on this path, you'll be outside my will for your life. I jumped back from the paper, put the pen down, like, okay, I'm not going that way. I'm going to stop right now, Lord. I'm sorry. Wow. So I stepped out from being in the light stage, and I just stayed I found myself in the hardest stage. Fast forward a few weeks, maybe a few months now, for that timeline. I'm at work, and I'm standing a coil. I'm praying in tongues, and I'm trying to pray about healing, because this is right now in my mind at this point in time. I want healing in my life. I want to see the healing. I want to be part of it. I want to get healed myself. I want it all. Every time I try to bring up healing up, God brings up marriage. I'm like, what is going on? Why, God? Why? Because I didn't want, my flesh did not want it. I can't tell you how much my flesh did not want it. That idea of bringing another person into my life really was not okay with me, because that's a lot of trust, which I trusted that I did not have at all. At all. And I realized I have no choice. I'm going to have to go home. I'm going to bow my knees and just pray this through, because there's no point in me trying to pray about anything else, because he always brings us back. He always brings it back. So I got home, and I got home around 11 that night. And I'm like, God, I want to get up at a decent time tomorrow. I don't want to be here all night. I'm thinking it's going to be like hours of prayer. I'm thinking I can live with 2 hours. I don't even want to pray for 2 hours about this situation, but I will. 3 hours I could suck up. 4 hours, oh God, please don't let me 4 hours. So I got down on my knees. I'm praying, the power of God comes down. You're thinking, because the power of God's down, it'd be awesome, right? It was heavy, it was deep presence, it should be awesome. But it wasn't awesome. The flesh was being murdered. It was just being slaughtered. It was a miserable time, but a powerful time. I don't know how to explain it to you. So I got up, and I'm like, it hasn't even half an hour yet. I go, this can't be right. So I got back down to praying. No power of God now. It was just dead, and I ended up falling asleep. Got back, I'm like, this is stupid. I'm going to bed now. I woke up, and if you asked me if it was broken and dealt with, I would have looked at you straight in the face and said, yes, it is, because I was convinced it was. It wasn't until 3 weeks later I woke up, and this is what I heard God say, Benjamin, I want you to love her. Now, I knew full well what he was talking about. He's talking about this woman. I have no idea who she is, but he's talking about this woman. I'm like, well, that's silly. I'm going to marry her, so of course I'm going to love her. Like, come on. And before I could say that, in my heart, I knew what was in my heart. And you want to talk about a hard heart. Oh, this is what was in my heart. I have to marry her, but I don't have to consummate the marriage. I'll say it again. I have to marry her, but I don't have to consummate the marriage. Now, if you don't know what consummate means, it means sleep with, okay? So, I have to marry her, but I don't have to consummate the marriage. If I don't have to consummate the marriage, we don't meet in the same bed. We don't meet in the same bed, we don't meet in the same room. We don't meet in the same room, we don't meet in the same house. If we're not in the same house, we don't meet in the same city. If we're not in the same city, we don't meet in the same country. If we're not in the same country, we don't even need to meet. All I gotta do is get a ring and a piece of paper, and I'm golden. So I was thrilled with that idea, and I realized this is all wrong, because all I'm trying to do is fulfill God's will legally, but not actually do it. And I'm like, this is not okay. God, this is not okay. I can't deal with this. So God, I felt my knees like, here's my heart. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. Here's my heart. Here, just take it. He gave me some instructions what to do. There's no point in telling me what instructions were because they're totally personal. They won't help you at all. But what will help you is this. If you're dealing with a hard heart like I was dealing with, the only answer is you take your heart in it. Believe me, when I say it's hard, you hand it to him. Like when I first started getting my heart, it was like a little piece. And no, that's too big. Here you go, Lord. That was how I was. So I know it's hard to give the heart over, but that's what does it. Here's the amazing part. Beforehand, if someone came up to me and said, hey, Benjamin, I know this girl, and you got to meet her. I want to know two things. One, she looked like, and I want clear details because I want to be recognized from a distance. Two, I want her name. So I can go the other way. All right? That was the only reason I want to know those two things. Now, and this is not an invitation for you to come and tell me nobody. Like, don't do that. Just don't, okay? But now, I'm actually interested in meeting this person, whoever she is, all right? Like that, you want to talk about a change of hearts. Like God has done some amazing work. So I want to get that across to you is, I realize that I'm praying about healing and God's talking about marriage. The reason why he's bringing that up is, Benjamin, your heart is hard. I can't work through you because if I ask you to pray for someone who you're attracted to, you won't because you're too scared to. So I can't work with you because the heart is hard. You have to deal with that hard heart. I'm praying about healing, and he's talking about this. I don't know what's hard in your heart, but I'm going to guarantee everybody's got hardness in their heart. My heart is still hard. I know my heart is still hard. It's just softer now than it used to be. I used to think a hard heart was a strong heart because a hard heart could take a hit and not get bruised, where a soft heart took a hit and it got bruised. And I thought the hard heart was stronger. But then I realized a hard heart can only take a weak hit. A soft heart takes a weak hit and bruises. A hard heart takes a weak hit and doesn't bruise. But a hard heart takes a big hit. It breaks, it shatters. And a soft heart bruises and heals. So I realized a soft heart is a strong heart. So I had to get my heart changed around. And I was like, this has got to change. So I realized everybody's got hardness in their heart to some degree. They might have softness like me now. I got some softness now, but I realize my heart is still hard in many, many cases. Like I said, I'm just at the point of me willing to meet the girl. I'm trusting in God. I know full well he'll make the changes along the way. So long story short, I know it will happen. I get that now in my head. Wherever you are, if you want to serve God, you have to deal with the heart issue. God says he will not do without a cheerful giver. Have you ever tried giving money cheerfully when you don't want to? You can't. You could fake it, but God looks at the heart. So you can fake it, and everybody else thinks you're so cheerful. You're like, I want to give it. And you put it in, you're like, oh, hallelujah, praise the Lord. No, it just looks that way, but you aren't. God sees the heart. So you try to give it cheerfully. The only way you can do it cheerfully is if you want to. And that's what the willingness is. It shows your heart for God. The hard heart prevents that. This is what brings number 2 up, the group 2 who actually fulfilled this up. And I love this group. And it only took 2 verses to answer this group. Just 2 verses. And he had 7 for the other group. And this is the answer. Therefore, go into the highways, and as many as you find, invite to the wedding. So those servants would enter the highways and gather together all whom they found, both bad and good. The wedding hall was filled with guests. So clearly the wedding hall was filled with guests, so they fulfilled the call. They came and they fulfilled the call. They answered the call. What did they do? How did they do it? Like, I get that they showed up, but how did they do it? I want to know how they did it so I can now copy what they did. I know what not to do now. I know a hard heart will lead danger. I know I got to deal with a hard heart, but what did they do to be able to answer the call? What did they do? Well, they just showed up. How did they just show up? And it hit me. They lived on the streets. They were street people. I remember O'Brien a few times. We handed out food to people. They were always grateful to receive that food because the food banks were closed on Saturdays, and there was the only food they got was that one little lunch bag, and they were always grateful. And that's nowadays. That's current. How much harder was it to get food back then? And it struck me, they're hungry. Their hunger is what led them to it. And it struck me again. Last night, it finally hit me. They've always been seeking food. They're seeking after food. They're seeking after food because they're hungry. They're always hungry because they're seeking after food, so they're looking for it. And that's what they're doing. They're looking for it. So when the promise came, the offer came, the king's having a meal. It's a king's feast. It's a king's banquet. You know his food's going to be good. So they're offered the one thing they're looking for. They're looking for food. So now they're being offered food. They're given the food. So of course they're going to answer that call, and they're going to go take that food because that's what they want. And that's where I realized how beautiful this is. God has told us through the prophetic word, through our pastors, and now I guess you could say through me, that God's will for Elim is healing. Now we know what his will is. We know what his will is. We know what his will is. Now we just have to make a choice. Are we going to answer that call? Are we going to prepare ourselves? Or are we not? Because if we prepare ourselves, when the time comes and God moves, we're like, I'm in. Or we're going to be like, well, I got to watch a game tonight. It's like, really can't do that, Lord. Or I got to do this, or I got this job. And that's the first group. We prepare ourselves now so when God goes to move, we're already in place because we're already looking for it. We're already seeking it. We're already desiring it. I'm seeing the mercy of God. He's giving us the chance to prepare ahead of time. So when the time comes, I'm in. Because if we're not in then, the odds of us going to become in is very small. I don't want to sit on the sidelines. I don't want to come to church someday and hear someone talk about a church on the road who's having a healing revival, and I realize I should have been Elim, but we didn't answer the call. We chose to sit in our butts. I can't tell you how much I don't want that. I don't want that. I just do not want that. I want to be the one that people are talking about. I want to be the church that people say, Elim's got healing. Like, you sick? Go to Elim. God's moving there. That's what I want to see. So back to now I'm starting to see the process. I got to seek after it. The whole scenario, this whole thing is I'm starting to see it. I got to seek after it. My question to God is, how do I become ready? I have to seek after it. It's such a common thing we're told so many times. Why are we told this so many times? It's such an important thing. But it doesn't matter how many times you're told it or how many times you hear it. It matters how much you actually do it. And I know there's people here who are hungry for God. Your hunger actually propels me forward, so thank you very much for that. I want to encourage you who are hungry to keep going forward, because as you go forward, you propel those behind you to come forward too. And for those of you who want to step up and they get in and you want to get in the game, it's so simple. It's so simple we overlook it. You get to seek it. God says, seek and you'll find. Desire it and you'll find it. Now, how do you seek healing? Do you seek healing yourself, or do you seek the healer? The answer is you seek the healer, because as you find him, the healing just shows up. And that's what I realized back in the Great Commission. Lay your hands on the sick and they'll recover. I had zero faith when I started this. I would not say I have 100% yet. I'm guaranteed I don't have 100% yet. But I have no longer down at zero. I don't know where I am. I'm somewhere in here now, here standing, I'm around here. What's going on now is I'm realizing as I seek him, as I get to know him, the healer, laying my hands on a sick and seeing him recover is not a big deal now, because when I lay my hands, his eyes go to and fro with the earth looking for who he may show himself strong upon. If I lay my hands on the sick, I'm part of the body. So is his hands, and whoever he lays hands on, they recover. With that knowledge, not just here, but in here now, I've got more confidence in it. I'm actually expect something to happen now. I can't say I expect someone to recover 100% yet. I'm still growing. I want to hit that level. But as I seek him as healer, as I desire to know him personally, like the Scripture in this church, to know him and to make him known, I can't make him known if I don't know myself. Let me put this here. What I used to do when I used to seek knowledge, wisdom, because I wanted to be of use to God. Sounded good. Stupid, but it sounded good. Because if I just sought knowledge, then all I could do was talk about him, but I couldn't introduce him because I just knew about him. I didn't know him, but when I know him, I'm able to introduce him. It's that desire when you seek, when you pray, what you seek for, what you desire, what is it you're after? When you're after him and you just want him, then you find him. And when you find him, you find everything he is. Casting demons out, when you got the power of God in you, are you kidding me? The demons are running terror. That's pretty easy. Laying your hands on the sick and the sick recovering, I get it. When I have him inside me because I know him, And I'm able to talk his word. I'm able to preach his word. I'm able to act like he does because I know when I lay my hands on it, it's the hands of Jesus I see now laying on him. He's just looking for someone to be, put your hand there so I can touch them? That's all I'm asking you to do. I get it. That healing can flow now. And as I know him, his power, it just comes down to that relationship. I don't know how many times I've heard that preached here. Relationship, relationship, relationship. And that's what I hear God saying. You've heard the message many, many, many times. Will you take up the call? Will you seek me? Will you seek me? Will you seek me? Because if we don't seek him, we can't find him, because you seek, you find. We've heard these messages so many times through the years here. I've been here for 22 years now. I've heard this message over and over and over and over again, and it can sound redundant, and you hear it enough times. But the truth is there. If you don't do it, you don't get it. So you have to actually do it. You actually have to seek him. And when you seek him, you find him. And when you find him, it just gets easy because it's not you. And you know it's not you because it's him. The standard becomes possible because it's the standard of the believer, those who believe in his name. Well, Pastor Joel, I could keep going, or should I stop? That's a question I'm not sure about. I'm at the time here. It is, am I reading that right? I'm good. Keep going. All right. Well, I will say this then. Hunger is produced by that desire to seek him. Like that seeking him really covers everything. When you seek him, you literally cover everything else. It all just, he made it so simple. We seek him, we find everything attached to him. So if I have no hunger, I realized that back about a year ago, I had no hunger, I had no fire. I was cold. I wasn't cold, I was lukewarm. Now the danger of being lukewarm is this. To become lukewarm, you first have to be cold, not saved. You get on fire, you get saved, so now you're on fire for God, and you're just like, woo, God, yeah! And then you slowly drift away from it and you become lukewarm. What happened? You turned away from your first love. So I want that fire back, because that fire will push me to seek him more. So I want that fire. Now fire is created by three things. It's created by a spark, fuel, and oxygen. Those three things are needed for a fire to happen. So the spark would be the Holy Spirit living inside of you once you're saved. So the spark is always there. So the only thing it needs now is fuel and oxygen to produce that fire, to get that fire back in there. Oxygen would be the presence of God. He's called the breath of God. The Word of God would be clearly the fuel. So if I don't have the fire in me that I know I should have in me, I just got to put the Word in me and put the presence of God back in me. In other words, I spend time with him in his Word and spend time with him in his presence. Simply I seek him with what he's given me, and I find him, and that fire is then reproduced and rekindled. And it can become as hot and as fervent as we desire to have it. Again, it comes back down to that desire for a relationship with him. I can just simply sum the whole thing up. If you want to follow God, you want to seek after God, you want God, you want him. Like you want him. You literally just want him. Because I could sit here and say I want God, but if my actions don't line up with when I go home, when I'm by myself, because it's easy right here. I can look really good right now in front of you all because I know what I got to do. But when I go home today, do I spend time with him? Do I seek him? Tomorrow when I get up and go to work, do I want him in my life, or do I just want him in my life around people? It's that moment when you have no one else to look at you that you make the choice. And that choice determines if you want him or if you don't want him. I imagine I'm probably stepping on some people's toes by saying some of these things, and you're kind of feeling crushed and, ooh, this is awkward and uncomfortable. I would say that's a good thing. I got my soul stepped on quite a few times, and it caused me to wake up and go, I got to step up because I'm not there. I don't want to be someone, how do I put this? I remember a message Pastor John gave. I like this message. I don't remember the whole thing, but I got the gist of it. He was talking about how Jesus made his trumpet entry in Jerusalem. And the people were laying their coats down, the palm branches, and they're calling, Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna. At the same time, in the temple, the priests are doing their thing. The people are bringing the sacrifices in. They're doing their thing. They're doing everything they've always done with the intentions of waiting for the coming Messiah. Well, the coming Messiah was coming at that point in time, and they missed it. Pastor John says something along these lines here. He doesn't want to be in this temple, this building, doing what he's always done and miss the move of God out those doors. And I felt the exact same way. I don't want to miss the move of God because I wasn't ready. And the only way I'm going to get ready is to choose to seek him. And it's such a simple thing. We just seek him. I could stand here and say seek for the rest of the hour, for another hour, and I don't think I'll be satisfied with it because it is so important to do that. And you don't clue into it how valuable it is until you actually start doing it. And the more I've been doing it now, the more value I see it. And those of you who are doing it, you understand what I'm saying. It's that seeking, it's that desiring, it's that longing, that's that I want you. TV means nothing now. I don't care. TV's in the way. It goes away. Entertainment, my biggest weakness. So I just had to go. I want to hit 0 hours. I'm working on that. But it has to go because it takes time up. Entertainment, like books, I could read for hours. Again, had to go. Things that steal from you, that you don't think mean anything, or maybe you don't want to give up, and that's what... Believe me, that's dangerous. When you don't want to give it up, that's when you've got to give it up. That flesh has got to die, because if you don't kill that flesh, you'll be in the hard-hearted situation. And that hard-heartedness leads you to that produces that unworthiness. The call has come to us, Elim. We've been called just by being in this church. We're called to healing. The question is, do we want to pick up that mantle and walk with it or not? And we'll find out when we go home and what we do. And if your toes are stepped on, that's not good enough. I want them crushed if you aren't walking with them yet. So it's that simple. I'm going to leave it at that. And I hope I got across. Please seek him. Seek him, even a little wee bit. Because if you do that little wee bit, that will be a seed that you sow that will grow, and it will grow, and it will grow, and it will eventually come to the point it takes over everything. And that's what you want if you want to get off the sidelines and get in the center. So there.
Fantastic. Hallelujah. Wasn't that a great